Dear learners, welcome back to Research Methodology course. Once you formulated your research problem and after conducting a proper literature review and framing your hypothesis and research design, the next step is all about data collection. So here comes the concept like population, sampling, then types of survey, sampling techniques, etc. So in this video, we will have a detailed discussion about all these things. Okay, so let's start. The term population means the total of all the units in a field of inquiry or your field of study is called the term population or universe. And this universe may be a finite one or maybe an infinite one. Okay. And finite universe or population means if we are able to enumerate all units in the universe or in the population, then that is called a finite population. For example, if total strength of students in a college, that is exactly we know the number of students studying in a college. So that kind of population is called a finite population. But for example, if the total number of stars in the sky, can we enumerate the exact number? No. So that kind of population is called an infinite population. So population simply means all items in any field of inquiry. Okay, that is what the term population, and it is also known as universe, and it can be a finite population or an infinite population. Then now we will see the concept called sample. What do you mean by the term sample? Sample means a set of units that is selected from the population for studying the characteristics of that population is called a sample. That means a sample is a smaller representation of the whole or the population. So it is a finite subset of the population. So a sample will represent exactly the particular characteristics of the entire population. For example, suppose a doctor examine a few drops of blood to test the blood of a patient, or sometimes we will, in order to check the quality of a bag of rice, then we will be take a few grains out of it. So these are some of the examples of a sample. So sample simply means it is a subset of population, and this sample represent the characteristics, all the characteristics of the population. Okay. And now we will see what are the characteristics of a good sample. The first one is it should be representative. That means the sample that we selected should have all the characteristics of the population. That means it should be a representative of the population. That is what meant by the term representative. And the second one is adequacy. That means a very small sample cannot be a representative of the population, right? But a large sample is very costly also. So in order to take place a study, it is always better to have an adequate sample. Okay, that is what meant by this adequacy. The third one, it should be free from bias. That means there won't be any kind of subjectivity in selecting the sample. It should be always an objectivity, or objectivity should be there in selecting a sample. That means there is no scope for bias. And the fourth one is suitability. That means the sample that we selected should be suitable for our area of study. And the last one is all about high precision. That means the sample should have a high degree of precision, and this precision is being measured by sampling error, and we will see this concept sampling error towards the end of this video. So these are some of the characteristics of a good sample. Then we move on to the another concept here is survey. And what do you mean by survey? A survey means it is a process by which qualitative or quantitative facts relating to a particular field of inquiry are collected in order to get an answer to your objectives. Okay, or objectives of the study or the problem that we formulated. So, survey we can say it is a planned observation of objects. And some of the examples for survey, like we heard about the term like economic survey, market survey, industrial survey, agriculture survey, etc. So these are some of the examples of survey. And survey simply means we are getting or we are gathering information or collecting data. Either it is qualitative or it is being a quantitative data is being collected. And there are two types of survey. One is census survey and second one is sample survey. And what do you mean by census survey? We might be heard about this term, census, right? So census survey means the collection of data from all the units of the population. That means in a population, all the unit is being studied. You might be heard about the census of India, like it is being conducted I think in every 10th, once in every 10th year, right? So this is an example of census survey. That means from each and every unit in the population, that is being, from there we will collect the data. And what is meant by sample survey? Sample survey means we are drawing information about a population through the study of a representative part. For example, like census that will be conducted for the whole India, right? And sample survey means what? Out of 28 states in India, we just select only one state. Okay, we will collect data from Kerala only. That is what sample survey. Hope the concept is clear to you. What is census survey? Census survey means from all the units in the population we collect data. Sample survey means from a representative part of the population. From there only we will collect the data. And when it comes to sampling, there are two principles are applicable. One is law of statistical regularity and second one is the law of inertia of large numbers. So law of statistical regularity means when we select a sample, that sample should possess almost all the characteristics or same characteristics as that population possesses. That is what law of statistical regularity. Once we draw a sample from a population, that sample should be an exact representation of the population. That means all the characteristics possessed by that population should also be possessed by this sample that we drawn. Then second one is law of inertia of large numbers. That means, or this principle state that large numbers are more stable than small numbers. So if the sample size is being increased, then that will be more representative to that of the population. So that is what the law of inertia of large numbers. And now we will see another concept, that is sample design. Sample design simply means a plan for the collection of sample. So that is what simply plan for collecting a sample from the population. That is simply means a sample design. And now we will see what are the steps in selecting a sample design. First you need to define your population, then you need to define your sample unit. Sample unit means a unit from which the data is collected by the researcher. That is what sample unit. Okay, then third one is you need to decide the sample frame. Sample frame means what? A list that contain all units in the population. That is what? A sample frame. Then fourth step is you need to determine your sample size, and finally you need to select what sampling technique that you are going to employ in order to get the data. And in the coming slides, we are discussing about this sample techniques. Okay. Now we will see the sampling techniques. There are two types of sampling techniques. One is probability sampling and second one is non-probability sampling. Probability sampling means what? It is a technique in which all units in the population that have a known chance or probability of being selected for the sample. So this is a random sampling. That means all the units in that population has an equal chances for being selected. Okay, that is what probability sampling. And here you have simple random sampling, stratified sampling, systematic sampling, cluster sampling, area sampling, multistage sampling, then sequential sampling. And coming to non-probability sampling, there is judgmental, convenience, quota and snowball sampling. We will see all this type of sampling in detail. So probability sampling is also known as random sampling or chance sampling. That means every item in the universe or in the population has an equal chance of inclusion or equal chance of being selected in the sample. That is known as probability sampling. And the first one is simple random sampling. So this is a method of sampling in which each unit of the population has an equal and independent chance of being selected as a sample. Okay, and the selection will be very objective and it is free from personal bias. So there are two methods you can employ in simple random sampling. One is lottery method and second one is table of random numbers. So lottery method means each unit of the population is assigned a number. Then these numbers are written on a small slip like a paper having same shape, size and color. Then this all slips will be folded and we will put it in a container or a box. And from that we will select one slip or we will select the number of slip that we are in need of that. Okay, that is done by randomly. There is no chance of bias, so we are not looking at them. We don't know what is being written in that paper, nothing we don't know, but we just selecting them randomly. That is what lottery method. Then second one is under table of random numbers. That means each unit of the population is assigned a number and from a random point on the table of random numbers, a random number is selected and a unit with number similar to that random number is selected to form a part of sample. So there are some tables that we are using like a Tippett random number table, Fisher and Yates table and C.R. House table and some of the random number tables that is being used if we are going to select a sample based on table of random numbers method. Then another type of probability sampling is the stratified sampling. So this stratified sampling is mainly done when the population is not a homogeneous group. Homogeneous means what? Same type of items are being there in the population. That is what homogeneous. So the stratified sampling is used when population is heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means what? It is not similar items are being there in that group. So in such a situation, what we will do? We will divide this population into different subpopulation. Okay, so suppose if we can consider as this is one of the population, then from this population there are different items are there, they are not similar one. Then what we will do? We will divide that population into some subpopulation. Okay, So this subpopulation or items in subpopulation having similar characteristics, right? So this is called one strata, this is second strata, then this is third strata. That means items within the strata having same characteristics, or it will be a homogeneous items will be there. But if we take the strata, like if we convert strata 1, strata 2, strata 3, it contains like what? They are heterogeneous item, but within the strata what? They are homogeneous item, right? That is what you need to be familiar. Stratified sampling is done when the population is heterogeneous, and from this heterogeneous group you need to get a homogeneous items. For that you will divide the population into different strata or subpopulation, and items within the strata are homogeneous or same type of items, or items are possessing same characteristics or similar to each other. That is what items being there in the stratified sampling. The next one is systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is very simple. Every nth item, right, every nth item is being selected as sample for the population. For example, suppose we have determined the interval will be 10. Okay, we will take the interval of 10, and first item we have selected is 9. Okay, the first sample unit is 9. Then we will select next sample as 19, then 29, then 39, then 49. So this is how nth item will be selected in order to form a part of systematic sampling. Okay. The next one is cluster sampling. So during this lockdown and corona period, you might be heard this term cluster. So if the virus spread is more in some area, then we will call it as a cluster has formed. You might be heard this in our CM press meeting. A cluster is identified, a cluster is formed. Okay, that is what a cluster sampling. So cluster sampling means the samples are selected from the population in groups. Okay, and each group is called a cluster, and the units in each cluster are heterogeneous because we are selecting one sample or one group, and they are forming it as a cluster, and it might have the items within the cluster is heterogeneous, not homogeneous like our stratified sampling. Okay, so for example, like if we conduct a tribal survey, this is an example of cluster sampling. Okay, and in the case of cluster sampling, we will collect information from all the units in that cluster. Okay, suppose in corona time, if we have identified a cluster or a cluster area, and we will collect samples, blood samples or the samples from all the parties or all the people within that cluster. Okay, then we will test their result, and we will see whether they are affected by corona or not. So this is how a cluster sampling is being done. We will select one area, and from that area, from all the units, we will collect the data. The next one is area sampling. So this area sampling is a variant of cluster sampling, and under this method, groups or clusters are formed on a geographical basis. That is what the speciality of area sampling. That means based on the geographical part or geographical area, we will select a sample. The next one is multi-stage sampling. From the word itself, we can get an idea. Multi-stage. In several stages, the data collection is being conducted. For example, suppose if you are studying based on some geographical area part, or you are studying some operational efficiency of nationalized banks in India. This is your topic. So first what you will do, okay, certain states in the country you will select first. Okay, that will be your first stage. Then from the second stage, from the selected state, you will select some district. Okay, so out of 29 states, you will select 10 states as in the first stage, and from this 10 states, you will select district. Okay, and you will obtain data from this district. Then after in your third stage, what you will do? You will identify certain towns. Okay, and from this town you will collect data. So this is like a stage by stage data collection. That is what multi-stage sampling. The next one is sequential sampling, and this type of sampling means we are drawing samples in a sequence from the population and collection analysis of data with respect to the sample selected at each stage is sequential sampling. Okay, so here the size of sample is not fixed in advance, and only after the analysis of data at each stage a decision is made as whether sampling is to be continued or not. So this is all about probability sampling, and next we will see non-probability sampling. And there are different types of non-probability sampling are there. In non-probability sampling, what is the speciality? There is no probability that every item in the population are being selected. Okay, so there is some kind of bias will be there. There is no randomness of being selected to form a part of sample. The first one is judgmental sampling. It is also known as authoritative sampling, deliberate sampling, and purposive sampling. And mainly this type of sampling is done by based on the expertise or judgment of the researcher. That is how we done judgmental sampling. The next one is convenience sampling. Convenience sampling means the sample is selected as per the convenience of the researcher. That is what convenience sampling. Moving to quota sampling. Quota sampling means the population is divided into group and each group has a homogeneous unit, and quota is fixed for each group with regard to the number of samples. So being in the case of like a balance of payment, etc., a quota will be fixed for each nation. Okay, so accordingly those nations can do import or export to a particular country, so export to a particular company. So that is what quota, a particular quota will be fixed for them, and within that quota only you can do the transactions and all. So just like that, a quota will be fixed for, okay, from this particular area I will select 5 units, and from the second one I will select this much of 50 female or 50 males. So this is how a quota sampling. The next one is snowball sampling. Snowball sampling means a set of respondents are selected and interviewed. So first we will identify one person. Okay, and from this person we will collect data, and we will ask this person that can you suggest some other person like possessing the similar characteristics, and this person will say okay, there are persons like this, and we will move to, or we will collect data from this people. Okay, then after that from there we will get information about other samples, and from there what we will do, we will collect information. So this is what a snowball sampling. And now we will see a distinction between probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling means every unit has an equal chance of being selected, but in the case of non-probability there is no probability or randomness of being selected. So in probability sampling, a sample frame will be used. Sample frame means a plan of collecting sample. Here there is no sample frame will be used, and in the case of probability sampling we use parametric test. We will have a detailed discussion about the same. But in the case of non-probability sampling we will use the non-parametric test. And we are moving to the last part of our session, sampling error. And sampling errors can be happen in two ways. Okay, sampling error. Um, there are two types of errors in research. One is sampling error and another one is the non-sampling error. Sampling error means those error that happen in the stage of sampling. So while we are collecting data and all, in that particular case, if any errors occurs, that is known as sample errors. And the sampling errors can be decreased by increasing the sample size. So this is how we can reduce the chance of sampling error. And next type of one is non-sampling error. That means an error that can be taken place at any stages of the research, from the starting to the end. Any time this non-sampling error can be taken place. So this is all about today's session, sampling. I hope this concept is clear to you. We will see you in the next video with some other useful concept in research methodology. Till then, take care, keep learning. Thank you.